Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting where we're all attending remotely. My name is Jane Jones, I'm Conway's Committee Services Officer and I can confirm I've done a sound check and you can all hear. In addition to committee members, we also have officers joining us to assist with our discussions, together with public speakers for some of the planning applications being considered. They will be introduced at the appropriate time. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available and for those attending on Zoom to choose your language of choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and those of you on Zoom. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, please pop a message in the chat function so I am aware. I will now hand you over to Matt Giorgio, Head of Law and Governance and Proper Officer, to preside over the appointment of the Chair.
Afternoon, everybody. For the benefit of members of the public viewing, as we do not currently have a chair of the committee, I'll preside over the appointment of the chair. Are there any nominations for chair? Councillor Chris.
Round our pawb, I would like to nominate Cynghorydd Austin Roberts, who has been a member of the Planning Committee for many years now, is very experienced and able. He was in fact on the way to becoming chair a few years ago, but was shunted off to being chair of Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee. So he's very experienced at chairing meetings as well. So if I could propose Councillor Austin Roberts.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. And it's seconder.
Sorry, Councillor Wood, can you put your microphone?
Are there any other nominations? If there are no other nominations, could you all show in favour of Councillor Austin? Any against? Abstentions? Councillor Austin, you've been elected as chair for the committee.
Gai ddiolch I chi gyd
And I
am yr
thank you all for this privilege, especially thanks to Councillor Chris Cater for nominating me and to Councillor Wood for seconding me. Before going on, I also thank Councillor Alan Hunter.
For the past 2 years in this chair. You've done it admirably and I hope that I can continue your good work. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Right, item nesa, the next.
Right, the next item.
Appointment of Vice Chair. Penodi is-gadeirydd, os na rhywun am gynnig, Cynghorydd
Have you got a
Gwynol.
proposal? Councillor Gwynol? I'd like to nominate Councillor Ifor Lloyd, who, as you, is very experienced on this committee. So, Councillor Ifor Lloyd.
Councillor Alan Hunter.
Yeah, I'd like to second Councillor Ifor Lloyd. As Gwynol said, he is a very experienced member of the planning. So yeah, happy to second. He's expensive as well.
Diolch yn fawr. Are there any?
Thank you.
Therefore, can I ask you to show of hands in the usual way, please? Any against? Yeah. Any abstentions? Dyna fo, llongyfrichiadau, Ifor. Dwi'n meddwl-
Congratulations, Ifor. I think he's with us on Zoom.
A tro nesa, fydd
And
hi yn y
next
siamper,
time you'll be in the chamber,
yn y set.
you can take your place in the big seat here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right then, moving on.
Can you lock the door out? Lock the dog out of there.
Oh, right, okay. Right. Oes a unrhyw
Have you
ymddiheuriadau?
got any apologies for absence?
Any declarations of interest? Code of Local Government Conduct? Councillor Chris Cater.
Llongyfarchiadau.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Chair.
I would like to, on agenda item 7A, there is the application for the North Wales Golf Club, code reference 0/49509. I shall be declaring a prejudicial interest because I work closely with Councillor Carol Beard, whose husband is the applicant, and I know the family quite well. Secondly, there is the Ysgol y Creuddyn application, which is here we are 50593, and I am an LEA appointed governor, but I'm also vice chair of the Community Centre Management Committee. Penrhyn Bay Community Centre is immediately adjacent to the site, so that will also be a prejudicial interest, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen Price.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to express a declaration on two items, 050527 and 050541. I am currently a town councillor for Colwyn Bay, although I do not sit on the planning committee, and I've had no previous engagement with the planning committee in making any decisions on this. Thank you. Oh, and also I'll be leaving at 4:10 because I have a school governors meeting at 4:30.
Okay, diolch yn fawr. Thank you. Councillor Joe Nuttall.
Diolch, Chair, and congratulations. I know you do a great job. I would like to declare an interest. It's going to be a prejudicial interest on 0/50551, as I'm on the Ethics Committee up at the Welsh Mountain Zoo.
Okay, Councillor Ifor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this one's a personal, not a prejudicial. I was previously a student at Ysgol y Creuddyn, so I'll take advice off Matt on this one.
I think as a prior student, I think the personal only is fine.
Yeah.
Diolch yn fawr. Is there anybody else before I'm Councillor Wood?
Councillor Mandy as well.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Wood first and then Councillor Mandy.
Okay. We're going to talk about inquiry 32042, not a planning issue, pages 102 to 136. It's in my ward, so I would like to bring that up. Is that okay?
Is that okay? Councillor Mandy. You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
You're still on mute.
Sorry, I had pressed it, gone back off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. It's a personal, but not prejudicial interest for 049509. I'm a member of the ward, both on county and town. However, I have actually distanced myself away from, getting involved with any residents regarding this, as we have 2 other ward members. And also the application, I can't find the application number at the moment, I'm sorry, but it's the Jubilee Street one as well, which is also the same.
Can I bring in Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just quickly for clarity that it's a convenient time to declare that you haven't been involved in an application of ward member. A number of members, including Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Wood, have already mentioned that issue. It's not strictly a personal interest under the code, but it's making it clear that those members haven't been involved, so essentially have kept an open mind for the purpose of this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trevor Stott.
Yeah, well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Trevor.
I'd declare an interest in code reference 0/50527 and reference and also code reference 0/50541. It's a personal and prejudicial interest on these 2 applications because I'm a member of the club in Crew Road, Coed Petler Road, sorry. And I will leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. And Councillor Alan Hunter.
Thanks, Chair, and congratulations. ENQ 32042, that's in part of that falls into my ward, but I've had no discussions with anybody about this application.
Okay, you happy with that? Okay, lovely. And finally, mae gynna I ddatganiad I wneud
I've got an interest to declare regarding 0/5098 Penbryn Bonsylltyn Llangernyw. It's a personal interest. I did know the grandfather of the wife of the applicants because both of us sat on the Eglwys Bach dog show committee, so it doesn't exist for about 5 years. So I think it would be a personal interest. Okay, then on we go. Have we got any urgent matters?
No urgent matters, thank you.
Minutes, item 6, minutes.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Chris, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Everyone happy with the minutes?
I think that's unanimous.
Right, on we go. The real committee, item 7.
Applications from the previous committee meeting.
Please forgive me. I will go back and forth between Welsh and English.
Because the notes here are in English only, and my brain's not set to do translation at a period on the foot. So right. Number 1, code reference 0/49509. The application proposal comprises the erection of a specialist golf course netting along a specific section of this golf course boundary, North Wales Golf Club House, 72 Bryniau Road, Llandudno. Oh, sorry. Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Chair. There's nothing in the addendum, thank you.
Right, then I'll therefore open it. Councillor Ivor.
Yeah, diolch, Cader.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to you on your appointment. I'd like to propose that we go with the recommendation. This is a necessity, especially as a result of the health and safety. So happy to propose. Thank you. Councillor Mandy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy to second Iva's proposal. As I stated in the initial proposal when I proposed last time, we need to be taking into account, you know, what all local residents feel, you know, about this, as well as the local town council in Llandudno, and our own highways, environmental health and the ecology departments within the council all have no objections to this fence. And the golf club themselves are actually trying to do all they can to mitigate any accidents with stray balls. So again, I don't see any obligation. I mean, any objection as to why we don't go ahead. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Right, I've got a proposer and a seconder. Is there any other proposals? Any other speakers? No? Okay, then, we can go to the vote, yeah? Right, show of hands, please. All those in favour? Yeah, I think so, yes. I can declare that that's carried. Diolch yn fawr. Yeah. We'll just wait for Councillor Chris to come back in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Welcome back, Councillor Chris. Just to let you know, that was carried. Well, ymlaen â ni, ail un i
Right, on we go. The second one to be deferred is 0/50290. Thank you, Chair. I haven't got anything to add. The only thing I'd like to raise is if members want to go with the decision from last month, that consideration is given to the condition on the permissions. As officers, we recommend 2 specific conditions regarding rural initiatives. First of all, we propose that there is a condition on the permission to ensure the house would be used as a house for an agricultural worker or another rural initiative. And then secondly, we propose that the condition removes the permitted development rights. And the purpose for that is to ensure that the size of the house in the future wouldn't be increased. And then make it less affordable. So if you're going to go with the previous recommendation, I would ask you to give consideration to those 2 conditions. Thank you.
Councillor Nigel Smith. Now da.
Good afternoon.
He's frozen. Are you with us, Nigel?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I want to propose that we reaffirm the planning committee's decision of the 10th of May, that we grant conditional planning permission. Thank you, Chair. And congratulations, by the way, to you and Ivo.
Diolch yn fawr, Nigel.
Thank you, Nigel.
Can I ask you, Nigel, are you willing to include the 2 proposed conditions? Nigel?
You're very
You're on
quiet.
mute.
You're very quiet, Chair.
Sorry, can I ask you, are you willing to include the two conditions that Kerry mentioned?
Were they included last time?
No, Kerry's just explained that if the committee is decided to reaffirm its last decision in the last meeting, that they would like to include the two conditions that he said. I'll ask Kerry to reaffirm those conditions in English, if he would.
Thank you, Chair. There are two conditions which are standard conditions on rural enterprise dwellings. So the first is a condition that's recommended in Welsh Government guidance in SAN 6. And that's basically to restrict the occupancy of the dwelling on a permanent basis to a person with a defined local connection to a rural enterprise. As I say, that is a standard condition. The other condition would be to limit permitted development rights so that any future extensions would need planning permission, and the purpose of that condition would also be in accordance with national and local planning policies on rural enterprise dwellings.
Okay, thank you for that, Kerry. From memory, on the 10th of May, we had quite a considerable debate on this application. And I think that the planning committee members were quite happy with the decision that we made at that time. I think possibly those additional restrictions could be seen as being unfair. So I'll leave it open to debate to the more rural members.
Okay,
but my proposal stands that we reaffirm what we did originally following a long debate.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I just bring in Matt?
Yeah, the decision last time was actually to delegate authority to grant permission that was conditional permission. My understanding is that the planning officers provided clarity about what two of those conditions would include. I think I'm right to say those are standard conditions for agricultural workers' dwellings. So if that could be, perhaps that could be considered.
It's the same.
Hang on, Nigel, before you come back, can I also bring in Paula? I'll let you speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to say, just follow on what Matthew's saying, really, that if you don't add those conditions on, then you are effectively granting planning permission for open market, unrestricted dwelling. So really, as Matthew said, you really need to be putting on conditions to restrict the occupancy, because the application has been applied for as a rural enterprise dwelling, so it should be conditioned appropriately. Thank you.
If I could, Chair, that the first condition, which was to tie the property to an agricultural worker, which I totally understand, that will be would be a local country resident, and I totally understand that. But the second condition about increasing the size of the property, having to apply for planning permission, I think we have affordable homes within the rural communities that don't have that restriction, unless I'm mistaken. So it was more the second condition I was a little bit concerned about. But if that's not the case, then I would be happy for both conditions.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. I'll take that as a yes then. Have I got a second? Or eilydd, Cynghorydd Tristan, ydych chi'n...
Councillor Tristan, are you ready to second? Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to you. Yes, I'm happy, very happy to second that in accordance to what Councillor Nigel said. Okay. Have we got anybody else who wants to speak?
Just clarify what Nigel said and clarify the conditions that are applied to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Matt, that is, please.
Yeah, my understanding, Chair, is that the proposal is for planning permission to be granted, conditional planning permission to be delegated to the officers to issue, and that the two conditions that are put forward are attached.
Yeah. Cynghorydd Gwynol.
Councillor Gwynol. Can I just ask also to Kerry, when you said first about the second condition, you said that it wouldn't be possible to extend the house. It is possible to house the house in the future. if they get permission. Is that right? Yes, I should have made that clear. Under the permitted development rights, houses can be extended. If we remove that permitted development rules, nothing stops them. If the family circumstances change, for example, if you need, or if the needs of the agricultural unit increases and there is justification for that, for extending the house, we would still be able to consider a planning application for extending the house. It doesn't close the possibility of putting a planning application in to extend the house, just that the matter would have to have that planning overview then. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy then. Thank you. I've got a proposal and a seconder. Can you please show your hands if you're happy? Thank you.
That's carried. Yeah, thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Symudwn ni ymlaen.
We'll now move on to the next one. Item 8.
Code reference 0/50625. Change of use of land for siting of static holiday caravans. Tŷ Mawr, Holiday Park, Tywyn Road, Tywyn, Abergele. Heavy, yeah? Oh, we have speakers, are we? Okay. Mr. James Wells, yeah?
Hello, welcome, Mr. Wells. You'll be given 3 minutes and we will let you know when you've got 20-30 seconds left, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ready when you are.
Thank you, Chair. My name's James Wells and I'm the agent for the applicant at Park Resorts Limited. This proposal is to change the use of the northeast corner of Tŷ Mawr Holiday Park from the currently permitted 89 touring caravan and tent pitches to 45 static holiday caravan pitches, equating to a net reduction of 44 units or roughly 50% of accommodation on the application site. The scheme is proposed to provide the type and higher quality of accommodation which the applicant finds visitors to increasingly demand at the holiday park. The holiday caravans will be clad in reconstituted wood slats in muted tones, and the site will benefit from significant soft landscaping, giving the area a higher quality appearance and helping to screen it from outside views. The proposed landscaping includes planting beds using a mix of native species and significant tree planting, particularly to the north and northeast parts of the site bordering Towen Road. It's relevant to note that there is already planning permission elsewhere on the holiday park for 124 touring caravan and tent pitches, and this will remain unchanged by the current application. So the holiday park will continue to offer a significant number of pitches for people wishing to use those forms of accommodation. I'd like to comment on 2 further aspects of the proposal today: flood risk and visual impact. The proposal represents a significant reduction in the maximum occupancy of the application site, so fewer people would be at risk during a flood event. Furthermore, the holiday caravans will be anchored to the ground to prevent displacement, and they'll be raised up by around 650 millimeters. So during any flood event, water would simply occupy the space beneath the caravans. Overall, the Council's Environment, Roads and Facilities team and Natural Resources Wales both acknowledge that the scheme constitutes an improvement on the current situation, and both have confirmed they do not object to the proposal. As already noted, the lodges themselves will be clad in reconstituted wood slats in muted tones, and soft landscaping is proposed across the development. Both measures will ensure the scheme has a high quality, attractive appearance. In addition, the site is already reasonably well screened by trees and bushes along its northern and eastern boundaries, and the scheme proposes additional tree planting to these areas to further reduce views from outside the site, but also to create new habitat and bring about biodiversity enhancements. We hope that in light of this statement and all the other information before you, the committee will be minded to approve this application in line with your office's recommendation. Thank you. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Is that the only speaker we have? Yeah. Okay. Gary?
Does gynnon ni ddim byd I adrodd ar yr
We
addendum.
haven't got anything to add, so the recommendation still stands. Thank you.
I shall open it. Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Mr Wells for speaking in favour. Tourism is a very important part of our economy, and as a councillor in the east of the county who has a large number of caravan parks, including T-Mower, very close, probably in the next part of my, because I live in Kimmel Bay, this is in Towyn. It's a very impressive park, and it's nice to see that this company are investing in the future, which will bring employment and wealth to Conway. So I would like to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation as per the application. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, Osna Eilid, is there a seconder to that proposal, please? Councillor Chris Cater. Iawn, anybody else want to make a comment before we go to the vote? The proposals? No? Iawn, okay. Can I ask for the show of hands? Rydych chi ddangos yn y ffordd arferol? Diolch fawr. I think that's unanimous. Iawn, mae hwnna wedi'w gymeradwyo.
Right, that has been approved. On we go to the next one.
Code reference 0/50527. Residential development comprising 4 dwellings and associated infrastructure at 31 Coed Pecha Road by Colwyn. We have a speaker, Mr. Oliver Blocker, speaking against, and then we have speaker, Mr. Mervyn Thomas, speaking in favour. Oliver Blocker. Oliver
Hello.
Blocker.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You
Okay,
have
sorry.
you have 3 minutes, Mr. Blocker.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair and councillors. I'm trying to get my video to work on the train. I would like to propose that this application not be granted even conditional planning permission for the prime reason that the impact of the loss of the bowling green and the allotments, specifically allotments for this application, constitutes a significant social and environmental impact, and that a section 106 be put in place to openly and transparently moderate and discuss the impact of the loss of the allotments and the trees to with the allotment holders and highways report that there are still significant works that need to be, or conditions that need to be met for the traffic proposal measures, such as 6 new crossings, and that the tree protection order and the housing development order also need to have their conditions met, because we would affiliate into the meeting. There are still mature trees that are in a conservation area that will be lost by the proposal of these 4 houses, specifically a large tree on the allot bushes, and that this the housing development in terms of the conservation and the affordability of housing would also need to be considered and conditions met. And we would suggest that the planning application go back and be redone, in most importantly with the consultation of residents and allotment holders, which hasn't been done so far.
Thank you, Mr. Blocker. And the second speaker we have is Mr. Mervyn Thomas, and he'll be speaking in favour. Mr. Thomas, are you there? Same rule applies. Oh, sorry. If you'd like to come to the front. Yeah, well, we're dealing with this application first. Okay, Iawn, croeso. Mae gennych chi 3 minutes, sir.
You've got 3 minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for giving the opportunity to speak to the councillors here. I'd like to say that I'm the chairman or the president of the British Legion Club in Colwyn Bay. We have something in the region of 400 members, and we've got applications from further members from the Clothes Club, the Labour Club at Llandudno Junction, and also the recently closed Victory Club in Old Colwyn. And we can't progress with any more members unless we have planning permission. Regretfully, if we don't get planning permission at this meeting, then the club will go into liquidation at the end of this month, because we don't have the funds to progress anything further, and we need about £50,000 spending on the club. Now, the downside of that is that there will be six members of staff who will get their redundancy, plus the manager who will lose their accommodation. Now, if we go into liquidation, and I don't believe people have thought this through to a large extent, then it'll be bought by developers. They've got more money than we've got because we haven't got any. They will then, I believe, apply to demolish the clubhouse and do away with the allotments, which is not our plan to do. We do not plan to go away with allotments. I do notice that nobody's been round to have a look at them. They're in a shocking state. And also, I'm sorry, and also they were given to the club for the use of veterans who were returning from the wars, in between the wars. And as a result of the decline in the number of ex-servicemen, then we've opened it to the general public. I might also add, we do not charge in any way at all for this service. So if we don't get planning permission, we'll go into liquidation, and I believe that a developer would buy it from the liquidators, and you'll be, well, it'll probably apply for a new planning permission. So I believe that ours is the better of two evils.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, ymlaen.
I'll come back once again later on. Thank you.
We also have one additional speaker, one of the local councillors, Councillor Croft. You have 3 minutes, Councillor Croft.
Thank
you, Chair.
Thank you for letting me speak, Chairman. This really speaks to both of the applications, like the previous gentleman. Very concerned about the impact this construction would have on all the local neighbourhood. It's quite a big application, really, in terms of the amount of work that's going to need to be done. My calculation is particularly on the ground levels, which we noticed on site in our site visit yesterday. There will be about 1,600 cubic meters of spoil that will need to be removed from the site to lower the bowling green on the second application. My apologies for speaking on both, but to lower the second one to ground level, which is about at least 100 lorry movements, without talking about footings and other deliveries of concrete and materials. There'll be a significant loss of parking spaces on Woodland Park and Hillside Road, and are likely to be drainage issues. And I thank Mr. Grantham, one of the other objectors, for detailing those. A number of neighbours already have issues with groundwater and have to have sump pumps installed to keep the properties dry. And I believe there was supposed to be a survey of groundwater, but that doesn't appear to have been done. Certainly the allotment holders haven't seen anybody doing any such survey. Of course, the allotment holders were given notice over a month ago, to clear their plots, which is why the allotments do look in a very sad state. The loss of amenity to the area will be significant. This is a treasured green space, even though it's not used by all the local people, because the bowling green and the club is a private private establishment, members only, but the visual appeal is most welcome. And that will be a significant loss to our area. I have spoken to a number of allotment holders about the plan for their arranged allotments, and the growing conditions for these new allotments will definitely not be as good because of encroaching buildings in shadow and the mentioned drainage issues, which occasionally have arisen already because of the levels of the ground at the moment. And wear and tear on the surrounding roads, particularly the double parked Coed Pesha, with lots of wagons going up and down, will be significant. I urge the committee, if they do pass this application, to make sure that a bond is taken, that the Hillside Road, Woodland Park West and Coed Pesha are resurfaced to a good condition afterwards, because they're currently in a poor state already. Thank you very much, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Ms Croft. No. Okay. Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. There is an awful lot in the addendum. I'll summarise as much as I can, but please bear with me. We have had response back from the Highways Officer, no objection in principle, requesting further details on the proposed layout of the vehicular access and of pedestrian access points. These are matters which will be subject to further discussions with the Highway Authority, but are considered to be acceptable in principle. We have received an update landscape plan, has also been submitted, noting the allotment layout with 23 plots, each with a minimum size of 8 metres times 3 metres. It also notes the intention to retain the majority of the trees at the site, as well as the proposed planting of hedgerows and other species. On the number of plots, we have had various plans showing various numbers of plots. One thing I would ask is that if you are minded to support the recommendation that officers are given delegated authority to determine the exact number of plots, because the landscaping scheme will include the number of plots, particularly if it includes trees and ponds, which could affect the site layout. In terms of, we have had quite detailed comments from the tree officer. The tree officer notes that the proposed development avoids the root protection areas of the higher category trees, but proposes some of the lower quality category C trees. So we'll remember from the site inspection yesterday, there are a number of trees both within the application site and outside the perimeter. The trees which we saw on the perimeter with Woodland, it's Coed Pesha Road, I'm sorry, the trees which you saw on the boundary with Coed Pesha Road, so the long row of conifers, they will be retained. The walnut tree, which is on the eastern side of the bowling green, will also be retained, as will the trees. There's a group of trees between the site of the present allotments and the bowling green. I can show photographs of these if you feel they would be beneficial. There would be some loss of trees. There's a small group of conifers immediately adjacent to the walnut tree on the eastern boundary. There's a small group also on the close to the site of the allotments and some of the trees within the present allotments. The tree officer has made some comments also on the planting scheme, including the selection of Pinus nigra as a planting species. We've received 3 further representations from local residents which note the following objections and concerns. Firstly, loss of bowling green and open space, which are vital community assets. Secondly, as we've just heard, concerns about changes in land level, excavation and drainage. Thirdly, queries about the Section 106 agreement for ongoing control and management of the allotments. There's concerns, as we've heard, about the loss of trees. A large plum tree in the southeasternmost corner of the site will be lost to accommodate houses. The allotments proposed are raised and will be shaded by the proposed houses and the new location to interrupt a memorial garden. It's also noted that the club's fire escape will be affected by the allotment's relocation. There seems to be a lack of clarity as to whether the ponds identified on the site layout are to be provided. The monies raised as part of the development will just delay the inevitable closure of the club. There are concerns with the amenities and the balcony at the front of the club building and how this will be managed. The site is subject to multiple restrictive covenants, and there are issues with waterlogging and flooding which need to be addressed. So I'll briefly respond to each of these points. Firstly, in terms of the loss of the bowling green and open space, that's already addressed in paragraphs 9 and 10 of the committee report. There is no policy, there is no breach of policy in this case because the ward already has a surplus of open space. In terms of the provision of the allotment, it is envisaged that the Section 106 agreement will require the developer to enter into a management agreement for the allotments. And if the recommendation is adopted, we ask that you grant us delegated authority to enter into discussions with the owners in respect of the matters that are to be included within the 106 agreement. Officers acknowledge that some of the allotment plots would experience shading. However, the degree of shading would not significantly compromise their suitability for growing vegetables. The provision of the ponds could be secured through a landscaping condition, although this could potentially affect the number of allotment plots. The question of whether the club will ultimately close would be a matter for the club's owners to decide. The council is enabled to compel it to remain open. Officers acknowledge that they would be overlooking from the balcony to the rear elevations of some of the proposed dwellings on Woodland Park West, and that distance is 16 metres at the closest point. It would be a matter for prospective occupiers of those dwellings to be satisfied that this distance is acceptable. The existence of covenants is not a material consideration, and issues with waterlogging and flooding will be addressed through the SAP process. The Conservation Office has made a number of comments in relation to the existing building. I'm not going to go into detail on that because they're not part of the application. The developer also maintains that no site ground levels will change, nor the height of the proposed houses. I would like to point out that there will be some ground change levels will be inevitable because, as you will recall from the site visit yesterday, the bowling green is currently elevated above the position of Woodland Road West. He also notes that levels were specifically set to accommodate surrounding roof levels. We have received further correspondence from the developer who notes that some planting has been, what he says, purposely planted recently, and small ponds set without the private landowner's consent. Officers wish to make the members aware that this is purely a civil matter and should not be taken into consideration when determining the application before us. So our recommendation is meant to grant planning permission, subject to, firstly, outstanding highway matters being addressed to the satisfaction of the Development and Building Control Manager, and secondly, the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure affordable housing and other planning obligations. And just to make it absolutely clear, the management of the allotments will be part of that. There is currently no legal protection for the allotment holders. So by including it within the Section 106 agreement, there will in future be a requirement for those allotments to be maintained in accordance with the management agreement. So I have nothing further to add at this stage, but no doubt there will be questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. I'd just like you, we've heard from the various speakers about, they're very passionate about these allotments, and I'm very glad to hear from Kerry that they're Section 106, but it does require the developer to enter into a negotiation on this and to adopt this. Can we put this as a strict condition, a separate condition? So along with affordable housing, it comes out as a Section 106 agreement for the management and retention of those private allotments. Thank you.
It would be done through the Section 106 agreement. I don't think a condition could require the allotments to be maintained in accordance with the management agreement. I think it would have to be done through an agreement.
I think that satisfies the council. It's the same issue really. It's a technical issue whether it's a condition or a section 106 agreement. Either way, planning permission wouldn't be granted unless and until a satisfactory agreement had been entered into, Chair.
Thank you, Matt. Secure, yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Nigel Smith.
Thank you, Chair. It touches your heartstrings, this one, doesn't it? Because I feel ever so sorry for the residents in the area who are feared of losing their beloved Outlook. And then we've got Mr. Thomas there, who's the chairman of the British Legion, who are struggling. And so many of our communities have lost the British Legion clubs. I can understand why they've come to the decision. And I think, as he said, it's the right decision because it preserves the club and protects the allotments. So it's best to keep some things than have nothing at all, because if a developer did purchase a site, the whole kit and caboodle would go. So I would like to move the officer's recommendation as per the listing there with all the conditions. I just want to comment that I did have an email from a Christian Smith, no relation of mine, of course, which they said there was an opportunity for an alternative strategy or funding source. If I'm right in my memory, that if you get granted planning permission, it stands for 5 years. So if they get on the negotiations quickly and find out an alternative package for the British Legion, then there may not be any houses on there if it stands any grounds, their alternative funding. So on those grounds, I would like to approve the officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel.
Is there anybody willing to second? Councillor Chris-Gator.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second, and I'll just, can I go into my reasons for that? Yeah, I welcome the legal protection for the 2023 allotments. On our site visit yesterday, I was quite, it's a very impressive area, and I know that the upgrading of the British Legion building is not part of the planning application, but it is to be welcomed. I know Councillor Simons talked about the disturbance of construction works and noise and so on, but we can't turn down an application on those grounds. There is, in many cases, a lot of commotion when a development is built. So that's something that we have to put to one side. As really is the email we had about a possible alternative funding stream. We have to decide on this application as it stands in front of us today. So as I say, I welcome the retention of the allotments, and in fact, it looks as if there will be new people involved in keeping those allotments. I also note that there's no objection from our highways officer, but I would say that when we were on Woodland Park West yesterday, there was extensive double yellow lines on one side. Now, on the other side, where the houses are going to be built, people won't be able to park, and those houses will have their own drives. So I would just want to note that if highways could reconsider the streets immediately round this development and perhaps have a look again at the double yellow lines, because it may be that the existing double yellow lines are going to be over restrictive. So I wonder if that could be noted, but I'm happy to second Councillor Nigel. Thank you.
Yeah, you're happy. Okay. Is there any, I can't see any hands up here. Oh, yes, Councillor Stephen Price.
Thank you, Chair. Having read the report, it hasn't yet been mentioned that the development site lies within the Pullycock Conservation Area and in close proximity to two Grade 2 listed buildings, Tudor Lodge and 16 Coypella Road. I know in the conservation section from CCBC. This is largely acceptable. I'm just wondering if there's a more definitive answer to largely. I haven't finished yet, Guy. I'm also aware that the local distinctiveness is also important in a scheme such as this one, as is the designs of the houses are largely, again, largely acceptable. Again, have we got a more definitive response to that? Because I note from that particular area of Colwyn Bay, the houses in that area are very individual and have their own characteristics. There's not one house, I believe, is the same in that area. And then potentially we're suggesting that we have up to 12 houses, all identical. And I'm also noting that the houses will be dominant in the stream. So that suggests that they are not in keeping with the current designs of the houses within the street. Councillor Chris Cater has alluded to the car parking on Woodland Road West. I've got great concerns about that with the double yellow lines and the potential parking on the other side of the road. There may be restrictive access to emergency services and to the bin men. And I think that needs to be addressed before we have a decision to move this forward. So the proposed development would result in a loss of some green and open spaces. I visited Mochta Bowling Green and the Bowling Green in Old Colwyn and spoken to the residents and members of those organisations. And it cannot be understated the well-being and mental health advantages that those amenities offer to the local community. And I think it would be a great shame if we was to lose that, because once we've lost it forever. I cannot support this application, and I will be voting against the Nigel's proposal.
Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen.
Wondering whether Julie could bring a PowerPoint presentation so you can have an idea of the design and go to slide 8.
Sorry, Chair, I can't hear anything.
Yeah, my sorry, Cynghorydd Austin.
I was having difficulty switching the microphone on. I've just asked Julia to show us slide 8. So essentially, I don't know if the members viewing on Zoom are able to see the PowerPoint presentation, but I can talk you through it. So effectively, this is a resubmission of the application. There was an application which was submitted last year and refused on design grounds. And we are well aware of the need for development to preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area. So I would like to reassure members that we are striving to ensure the best design that's achievable in these locations. And the design that's before you is a very big improvement on the design previously submitted. And what you will see before you, the top slide is the site facing onto Woodlands Park Road. The lower slide beneath it is the street scene onto Hillside Road. What we have seen here is designs which reflect the traditional style and character of the build of the area. Now, as Councillor Price noted earlier, there is quite a wide range of variety in building styles within the locality. And the development does reflect that variation. So it does introduce elements which are common to the prevailing architectural style of the area. It includes dormer windows which are sympathetic to what's previously in the surroundings. There will obviously be a change to the character of the area. And what you have to bear in mind that policies on development in conservation areas, they do not necessarily prevent developments. The policy and objective in conservation areas is that we should always seek to either preserve or enhance the character or appearance of the conservation area. We have to acknowledge that the present character of the site is going to change as the bowling green is now surplus to requirements. that feature, it's an elevated feature within the street scene, that will no longer be maintained as a bowling green. So there will be a change to the character that way. But we do feel that the development that they are proposing is reflective. It does meet the objectives, the statutory objectives that we have to consider when addressing development in a conservation area. If you could go up to slide 7, please, Julia. So this again shows two individual plots. Very much you can see from the scale and massing of the individual blocks that they are very similar to the predominant style which is in the area. And as I say, there is quite a lot of variety in the architectural style in the area. Lots of the buildings make a positive contribution, but there are some buildings in the conservation area which don't make a positive contribution. So I don't feel it would be fair to conclude that this development would adversely affect the character of the conservation area. Certainly it would involve a change to it, but I don't think that's necessarily unacceptable. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Kerry. Councillor David Carr, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I've got concerns about, yet again, wanting to build on greenfield sites. There's a brownfield site only a quarter of a mile away that's owned by the local authority next to Witherspoons, and that's been just left there for the last 15 years, never been built on. There's also a brownfield site in my ward off Ensley Road that's not been built on. You know, I'm really at a loss that if we actually, yet again, actually allow this development on a greenfield site, a bowling green, which is a community asset to be built on, when we have brownfield sites that don't tend to get built on. So I won't be voting for this today. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councillor Stephen Price, you wanted to come back in? Stephen, did you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. If you could, is it possible to go back to the slides with the housings? I think I think that one might be more appropriate. The aspect of that, to me, doesn't look like it's in keeping with the current housing stock that's in that area. And for me, that would be almost looking like a tourist attraction. It'd be like putting the Eiffel Tower in the middle of Colwyn Bay, because that would be dominant within that area. It is not in keeping with the houses that are currently within stock. And I've also noted that from the development, the development would have some impact on the conservation area. However, I am of the opinion that the scheme is broadly acceptable. Again, no definitive answer there. It's broadly. So you're obviously acknowledging that it is going to have an impact on that conservation area.
Yeah, you should know.
Yeah, I don't really want to get too bogged down with semantics. The planning officer's recommendation is to minded to grant planning permission, and as part of that assessment, officers consider that the scheme can be approved subject to consideration of the mine, subject to consideration of the outstanding matters. So it is, of course, a matter of judgment as to whether development does make a positive contribution to the character of the conservation area, and I appreciate that not everybody will have the same opinion on that.
Diolch yn fawr. Councillor Chris Cater, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Well, when we were on site yesterday and looking at the diagrams and the drawings of the proposed buildings, I thought they were very sympathetic to the area myself. And I think we've got to remember that these are going to be, although from the outside they'll look Victorian or Edwardian or whatever, they will be built to modern standards. You know, they will be energy efficient, and they'll be constructed up to, you know, to help the new owners or tenants, you know, that have lower cost of living bills and so on. I think it's important that, as Kerry said, conservation areas in some ways do need to move forward, and as long as applications are sensitive to the environment, and I think it's a balance. It is judgment, as Kerry says, but there is a balance. And I think considering we're going to have these allotments maintained and improved, and we're going to have the British Legion building itself improved, I'm still convinced that we should support this application. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr. Before I bring in Councillor Ifor, Kerry, do you want to come back in?
Only just asking members whether they want to see more slides, because we have got more slides to show if you'd be interested in seeing them.
Photo montages which provide a good indication of how it will look. Sorry.
So could you go to slide 18, please? So this is a photo montage showing the elevation onto Hillside Road. You can see the existing building on the left-hand side. And if you could then go down to slide 19. 19, yes. Sorry, mine is still stuck. So this shows the street scene onto Woodland Park West. The only thing I find somewhat unfortunate is the large expanse of parking at the forecourt, but I don't really think there's any other way of providing it.
Okay. Cynghorydd Ifor.
Councillor Ifor. Thank you.
Kerry, am I right in thinking the property opposite this photo montage now on, is it Rhyw Road or West? I'm not sure the name of this road. It runs on right angles to Coed Pella Road.
Woodland Park.
That's Woodland Park, yeah. Would I be right in saying these are modelled on the property that we saw yesterday, a modern property, and it didn't look out of place, it looked in context. The amount of conservation planting you've got in this photo montage tells me that, you know, they're making a great effort here to make it sit in its environment in the conservation area. And also you've got retained green space, open space. We're just moving the actual allotments over to another section, and they are south-facing. There might be a bit of shadow off the old building, but yeah, you'd be able to grow stuff on those allotments. So I've got no reservations there. So I'm kind of happy. I know nobody likes change, but nothing stays the same. Everything must change. And this, for the viability of the actual club, I think we need to support this. And it also gives people homes. Yeah.
Okay, iawn. Dyna ni. Has
Right,
anybody
that's it.
hasn't spoken want to say something? No. Well, we've got a proposer by Nigel Smith and a seconder by Chris Cater. So could you show in the usual way, please? Yeah, can you show again, please, to all those who are in favour? Those against? Rheini sydd yn erbyn, those against? Abstentions, ymataliadau? One. Okay, ma hwnna wedi'w. That's been
Okay,
carried.
that's been carried. On we go to the next one.
Code reference 0/50541, residential development comprising of 8 dwellings together with associated infrastructure and the relocation developments at 31 Coed Pecha Road, Colwyn Bay. I will now like to introduce a public speaker at this point. Mr. Oliver Brooks will be speaking against. Oh, sorry, Blocker. I apologize for getting your name wrong, Mr. Blocker. You have 3 minutes, sir. Is he there?
Just turning the video on. Well, can you turn my video on if you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, thanks again, everyone. It's Oliver Blocker again. Firstly, I'd like to thank the people who spoke out for all the reasons why this planning isn't really appropriate. And I'd definitely like to pick up on some of the inconsistencies in what people have said in support of it. There's not a plethora or a surplus of green spaces in Colwyn Bay itself. The nearest playground, for example, is all the way down on the beach or all the way up the mountain for my small children to get to. And they quite enjoy going to the allotments as something to do as part of our community. I would say that in terms of all the residents who voiced their objections, nothing about this development is really in keeping with the area. We appreciate there is development, but there are many other options in terms of providing affordable housing that doesn't involve bulldozing the bowling green and the allotments, most of which will be lost by these plans. I'm very sorry that the business model of the British Legion business, not the British Legion, is not been sustained. As an allotment holder and club member, I would gladly pay much more to help support the club and the use of the allotments. Many of the civil matters were factually incorrect, as are so many of the facts put in through these planning applications. I really feel strongly about what has been said, that this is taking, whilst the applications may fulfill many of the criteria or policy set, this is not moving forward. I appreciate things have to change, but there are other ways that things could change in terms of affordable housing or community benefits of what remains of the club once you lose the bowling green and the allotments, such as the bar and the bingo, that could be accommodated with a development that would also include affordable housing. I think I speak on behalf of the residents that it's not the lesser of two evils. We will gladly take our chances with another developer who may be willing to be more sensitive to the area and more appreciating of the things that are beneficial to the area, such as the bowling green and the allotments, not necessarily the club. So yeah, we would probably take a gamble on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now can I call upon where am I? Mr. Mervyn Thomas, who will be speaking in favour. Rhys O'Brien, Mr. Thomas.
Same as before, you've got 3 minutes, Mr. Thomas. Carry off as well.
Yeah, carry on. I don't intend to repeat what I've said. As said, I'll just deal with the club, which has been there for almost 100 years. It was given to the Royal British Legion by a solicitor in between the wars. This gentleman had won the Military Cross in the First World War, and it was for the benefit of ex-service people. Well, the armed forces of the Crown now are very small, so now it's a private members club with in excess of 400 members. We are very conscious of our duty to the community. And as I said, with the allotments, very, very valuable. A 106 agreement is vital to protect it for perpetuity. It's vital to do that. I was going round the allotments. I was a bit concerned that a pond had been dug to the depth of 4 feet in the allotment. Well, if a child had got into that, which has been brought up earlier, and they'd fallen into that, you have got a health and safety problem. I don't know at this juncture whether the allotment owner would be responsible or the club, but certainly we'll be bringing it up. In the club, we've got a very strong snooker club. We've got a darts club. We've got the Knights of Snowdonia, which is a military band. They play there, they stop there. And we have, if you could write, more mature clientele who go to bingo, which is very, very vital for mental health. We get older people go there on a Wednesday evening. Although I'm old, I'm not into bingo yet. And the meeting rooms, whoever organization wants to go there, they can use the meeting rooms and we don't charge them for it. The only thing we do is obviously if they use the bar, it's not a free bar. So we do try and accommodate the community, which is a community asset. I regret sincerely the loss of the bowling green, but we can't afford £10,000 a year to keep it going, and we need the asset to we need to sell that asset in order to progress the club. And I'm not going to go on about if a developer goes there. Obviously, developers have got damn sight more money than we have, and in my opinion, they would knock the club down. So we try our best to accommodate the community. It is vital because that's what it was set up for initially, for the armed forces of the Crown. But those are few and far between now. And so, as I said, the 106 agreement, I believe, is absolutely vital. We need to keep the allotments going. We're moving them from 20 plots to 23 plots. I can see some logical arguments, but I reiterate that if we don't get planning permission, we will fold and you will lose the bowling green eventually anyway, because developers have got more money than you or I. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Thomas, thank you. Iawn, Kerry?
Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Chair. Don't need to read the addendum again, do I? No. I haven't got anything to add then, thank you.
Anybody want to speak? Councillor Stephen Price.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like some clarity on the covenant of 1892, isn't it? The covenant on the land of 1892. Just some clarity on it, please.
The existence of a covenant is a private matter between the owner and the persons who are entitled to enforce the covenant, so it doesn't involve the planning authority.
Yeah, I'll just confirm that as legal officer. So the private interest, and we're not here to think about private interests. If there are any potential private hurdles in terms of implementing the development, those will clearly be matters for the applicant should permission be granted.
Back, Stephen? No. Okay, Cynghorydd Nigel Smith.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Cynghorydd Chris Cater.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to second it. I think I put my reasons for doing so in the previous application, so they still stand. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Councillor Ifor Lloyd.
Kerry, can we condition it that we're able to differentiate between the buildings so they don't look so generic? Such an example of different coloured doors, or so that it breaks it up in the conservation area?
I would have no objection to such a condition. No, I don't see a problem with the condition that the timber work is finished to a finish approved by the planning authority.
Yeah, is that right, Nigel?
Are you happy with that, Nigel?
Well, looking at the property in, what was that, Woodland Road, was it?
Yeah.
all the front doors match there and it looks really, really nice. Might look a bit odd with different coloured front doors, but I'd leave that to the officers.
Okay, I'll leave it in your hands, Kerry. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I've got no other hands up. No, so we've got a proposal by Councillor Nigel Smith and a seconder by Councillor Christopher Cater. Can you show in the usual manner, please? Yeah, right. Any in that bin, those against? Unrhyw ymatal, any abstentions? Na fo, ma' hwnna wedi'w basio.
Right, that's carried.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
all. Iawn, mlaen â ni at...
Right, we'll move forward to
Councillor Trevor Stott back in, please. Yes, okay. Can I just confirm that both those applications have gone with officer's recommendation? Iawn ta, yr un nesa, next one, 0/50.593, construction of a two-storey extension consisting of 3 number classrooms, toilets and storerooms together with 5 number new car parking spaces and 2 number external doors to existing toilets at Ysgol y Creidyn, Derwen Lane, by Penryn. We'll wait for Councillor Christopher Cater to leave. Iawn, okay, David. Oh, we have a speaker, sorry. Andrew Kelly, yeah. Mr. Kelly? Oh, diolch.
Good afternoon. Are you able to turn my video on?
Trying to identify you, Mr. Kelly, by your ID. Please
I'm 44781.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr, Mr. Kelly, you have 3 minutes.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application on behalf of Ysgol y Creidyn. In terms of context, these proposals for a new classroom extension respond to the Welsh Assembly Government's Cymraeg 2050 commitment. This commitment aims to increase the number of learners in Welsh medium education by 2050. As Ysgol y Creidyn is the only designated Welsh medium secondary school within Conwy County, the school plays an important role within this strategy. This application proposes to construct a 2-storey pitched roof extension to accommodate 3 new classrooms, additional toilet facilities and storerooms. We have also allocated 5 new car parking spaces within the existing car park to accommodate the expansion. The existing school buildings feature a distinctive design. There are prominent steep pitch roofs, a central horseshoe-shaped plan, with further classroom wings radiating from the centre. The new extension will echo these characteristics and would appear relatively minor in the context of the whole school. The proposals would not encroach on any existing sports pitches and are located over 70 metres from neighbouring properties. The designs also include new tree planting, bird boxes and a sustainable drainage strategy. During the planning application process, 2 representations have been received from nearby residents. These comments relate to vehicle activity and highway safety. These residents are located near a side entrance which was used as a COVID protection measure during the pandemic. and may have given rise to their concerns. Currently, traffic is managed by directing vehicles to the main entrance and main car park, whilst the majority of students use buses due to the school's large catchment area. I hope that helps to clarify the school's traffic management strategy. That also concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr I chi. Cynghorydd Ifar Lloyd. Oh, sorry,
Diolch yn fawr.
cyn mynd
Ie,
ata chdi, Dave Watson, sorry. I'm new to the job.
Thank you, Chair. The recommendation is minded to grant conditional planning permission.
Well, that was short and sweet. Okay, Ifar.
Diolch yn fawr. Ie, fatha cyn ddisgybl, o'n i'n pan nath o agor yn dechrau 80au. Mae'n neis gweld yr ysgol dal yna ac dal I ddatblygu. Felly, sy'n hoffi cynnig yr argymelliad i'r estyniad. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, Cynghorydd Ifar. Nobody? Yeah?
We have no translation.
Okay, so quickly what I'll do is I'll translate. He's proposing that we go with recommendation. Yeah, hang on. Yeah, we're just checking with trust. Yeah, we'll have a short adjournment, but you can't leave the building.
Translation, can we please do a test?
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, you know.
Testing. Okay, I'll say it again. Well, I started at school beginning of the 80s. It's good to see that it's still going strong, and that they need an extension in the school. And the school is still developing. So I'm happy to propose the recommendation. Thank you. Is it working okay? Yes, thank you. Councillor Gwennell. I'd like to second the proposal of Ifar Lloyd, because this extension will extend the provision for Welsh medium education in Conwy. So I second his proposal. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Diolch yn fawr, Gwennol. Right.
Thank you, Gwennol.
And we've got a seconder. And before we go on, Councillor Joe Nuttall.
Hi, thank you. I work around that area quite a lot, and that road is particularly narrow. Is there any space for extra car parking for, I think it's sixth formers that park on that road. I don't think it's all staff. So is there any provision in the car park for extra parking for sixth formers to clear that road? Because I know this is going to add 30 more students to the school, so that'd be really great to be able to have more parking on the car park. Thank you.
Dave?
The proposal does include additional car parking, 5 additional spaces. So I'm not sure whether the councillor was aware of that or not.
I am, yeah.
Okay. As far as I'm aware, the Highway Authority has a fairly extensive look at the site with the applicant to identify the best provision for parking within the site. And they've got the maximum, you might say, the best arrangement of parking and that sort of thing for the vehicles that attend there. So I'm not aware that there's any extra space on the site itself.
Okay, Joe.
We do have a highway officer in attendance, I think, if you want to ask.
Yeah, that'd be good, because it really is a bottleneck down there.
Who's the officer? Paul Smith. Can you come in, Paul?
Yeah, can you hear me all?
Yeah, we can.
All right, yeah, the highways are satisfied with the parking provision that's being provided. We have gone out and we have visited the site numerous times and gone out with road safety staff. We have not looked, this application doesn't form part of providing additional car parking for sixth formers, so we have looked at it in regards to the capacity of staff and associated support staff with it. At the moment, like we said, we we don't want to go into the coach drop-off area, really, because it operates quite successfully. So we're satisfied with it, but the application does not propose to provide car parking for sixth formers.
Do you want to come back, Joe?
Yeah, just diolch for that. Thank you.
Okay, diolch yn fawr, thank you. I can't see any more hands up. Felly, mae gennau gynigydd yng Nghynghorydd Ifor Lloyd a mae gennau eilydd yng Nghyngorwraig Gwynol Ellis. So if you could show in the usual manner, sgwelwch chi dda. Iawn, dyna fo, mae hwnna wedi'w basio. Oce, dyna ni, ymlaen â ni. Sorry. O, Councillor Chris, Kenton, eich di fynd i nôl? Ne, o Stephen, Stephen will go. Diolch yn fawr. Right. Yeah, I will. Croeso nôl, Cynghorydd Chris, just to let you know that was passed. Right, yr un nesa, cais 0/50521, conversion of builder's yard to residential dwelling house at Jubilee Passage, Llandudno. I don't think we've got any speakers, have we? No. Dave?
There's nothing in the addendum, thanks, Chair, and the recommendation is minded to refuse conditional planning permission.
Okay, Councillor Nigel Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to jog my memory, but we approved 77 dwellings in a site in the same vicinity as this application. And I can't remember whether the officer's recommendation was to turn that application down as well. Might well have been. So I'm a little bit, how can I say, I like to be consistent. That is the wording. I like to be consistent. And I see that the applicant has done everything he can to sort of limit the concerns over flood risk by limiting it to 31 days occupation, which seems very, very unfair when literally within probably 100 yards of it, the other side of the railway line, we've approved 77 full-time, full occupation accommodation units. So I would like to propose that we stick with the continuity and approve this application. That's my proposal, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr, Nigel. Is there a seconder for Nigel's proposal? Councillor Tristan. Cynghorydd Tristan.
Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Ia, mae Cynghorydd Nigel yn llygad I le, mi roedd, wrth gwrs, swyddogion yn gwrthod, neu yn argymell bod ni'n gwrthod y 77 o'r anedd leoedd ne a fi.
We don't have any translation, Chair.
Tristan, wedi di stopio munud, da ni'n cael traffath efo'r cyfieithydd.
Cyfieithu, translation.
Hello, yes, I'll step in now, thank you. I'll carry on, thank you.
Iawn, oce, Tristan, gei di ddechrau eto. Mae'n ddrwg gen I.
Mae Cynghorydd Nigel yn llygad
Yes, Councillor Nigel is totally right. Of course, the officers recommended refusing the sites, about 77 houses. And the truth is they have to refuse everything that comes in Llandudno, in that Morfa Rhannedd area, because it has been underwater at some time. But of course, there is demand for housing in the area, there's demand for housing in Llandudno. So I totally agree with Councillor Nigel. He talks sense, so I second him. Thank you, councillor Justin. Councillor Mandy Hawkins.
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to actually recommend that we go ahead with this ourselves, but obviously Nigel and Tristan got there before me. It's obviously within my ward, and yeah, the 77 houses were approved by the railway station, which we know. And there was actually also another development that was approved a couple of years ago, which is just on Trinity Avenue. And then, as Ivor said as well, I think it was Ivor, sorry, we have got a terraced road of houses, which are literally, you know, 100 yards from this proposed development. So yeah, I have no problems going ahead with it. I would just like to just ensure though that procedures are followed in regards to any sort of asbestos that may be on the site, just to make sure that's managed properly. If you could add that to it, please, Ivor. Thank you.
Great, diolch yn fawr, Mandy. Before
Thanks, Mandy.
Before I bring them in, I'd like to bring in Dave Watson. No, I haven't touched them.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry about that, everybody. I think, as Councillor Smith has said, consistency is very important, particularly in planning process. And obviously the council will be sort of held to it to be consistent in its appeals and that sort of thing, any sort of challenge that might be made. So, and as Councillor Smith mentioned, there has been permission granted by the council for 77 dwellings, which and the officers did recommend refusal to that application. That was recommended for refusal for a number of reasons, not just flood risk, but flood risk was one of the issues. And in terms of consistency, NRW will potentially object to any applications of this nature because they are in a C1 flood zone, which means the development can't comply with TAN 15, and the new TAN potentially would be even stricter and make it even more difficult. So in terms of consistency, there will inevitably be an objection from NRW, but I would say that in trying to be consistent, the precedent, if you want to call it that, for the permissions that have been granted before, each of these applications does have different circumstances, and I've been looking at the differences between this scheme and the other schemes that have been approved, and there have been several. Some of them have been schemes where the floor level has been higher, and so potentially the occupants of the dwellings would be at a lesser risk if there was flood, because there would be less height of flood water in the properties. And that's one of the main considerations. Some of the schemes have had residential accommodation purely at first floor level and not at ground floor level, so that's overcome that concern. This particular site, it's within the flood risk area, C1 flood zone, but it does have a particularly low ground level, and it's a lower ground level than the other sites that have been approved. So that does effectively mean the council hasn't given permissions on other sites, which it's going to be inconsistent with, because it could say that this site has a lower ground level and therefore the occupants of the property would be at a greater risk if this one is approved. So I think that is something to bear in mind. The other point from Councillor Hawkins, I think the Environmental Health Officer has recommended procedures to deal with asbestos, so that would be a planning condition if it was approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Councillor Stephen Price.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very familiar with that particular passage, as I used to be a pupil at the old Ysgol John Bright. There attended many events along that passage, and I'm also mindful that it is very, very narrow, so I'm concerned about access in regards to emergency services and to the bin men. I take on board Nigel's comments in relation to the 77 dwellings on the other side of the railway, but I believe the topography is completely different in that passage, and the risk of flooding is at a much greater level. So therefore, I would hope that we would have a site visit first before members committed to making a decision today.
Diolch yn fawr, Stephen. Councillor Chris Cater. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I'd
hang
like
on,
to se-
before you go on.
I'd like to second. Yeah, is
Thank
that-
you, Chair. That is
that was-
exactly what I was just going to come in and say. We've had a proposition to defer the application for a site visit, which we need to consider before we continue to consider the main motion in this case.
Okay.
And we've had a seconder also by Councillor Chris for a deferral for a site visit.
Okay, so we go for that. do we?
So we need to debate the request
Yeah.
for a deferral and then vote on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to give you my reasons for a site visit. I know that the topography is a bit different. I was the one that proposed that we recommended accepting the application on Trinity Avenue, because when we stood there and looked at the site, we looked around and there were so many domestic dwellings that were lower than that one, the proposal. So we stood by our guns and we approved it. And in fact, NRW did try and stop it even then, but the inspector decided that we had a very balanced debate and we had our reasons. And so that development went ahead and is now built and is providing homes for people. So, but however, I do take the point that that the officers made about each site being different. So I'm happy to second Councillor Stephen that we should have a site visit so we can be perhaps better informed. Thank you.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you. Councillor Nigel Smith and then Councillor Mandy. Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any objections to a site visit. My only thoughts are that this is a builder's yard, so access will be good because it's a builder's yard. The flood risk, you could say, well, we're spending additional millions of pounds defending Llandudno from flood. So yeah, let's bring on that site, the site visit. Unfortunately, officers talk about the topography and raising the floor levels, but we have to take each application as they're presented to us. And this application doesn't raise the floor level to the same height as the other properties. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr. Councillor Mandy.
Thank you. Councillor Mandy?
You're muted, Mandy.
Hi there. Sorry about that, Chair. Again, I don't have an objection if anyone wants to do site visits, so each member is properly informed. In regards to emergency vehicles and bin wagons, they go up and down there already at the moment because of Jubilee Street, which is just off it, which you'll see on the site visits if that's what's arranged. And also with it being a builder's yard at the moment, they do have work vans that come and go from there as well. So I just thought that was important for you to know. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Mandy. I can't see anybody else's hand up, so we will go with Councillor Stephen Price's proposal for deferral, seconded by Councillor Chris Cater. Fedrwch chi ddangos eich ymateb os gwelwch yn dda.
Can you show your response, please?
I think it's unanimous, yes. Mae hwnna'n unfrydol, that's unanimous. So we'll have a site visit in a future date. Okay, iawn. Right. Newid sbectol. Cais nesa ydy...
The next application. 50551.
CCTV mast to Zoo Car Park area, Welsh Mountain Zoo, Old Highway by Colwyn.
Please, can you put me in the waiting room?
Joe,
Yes.
yeah, will
Thank
do.
you.
Bear with
We'll
me.
put you under lock and key. Iawn, okay. Who's dealing with this, Kerry?
Diolch, Cadeirydd. There's no objection from Cadw or the tree officer. Our revised recommendation is minded to grant conditional planning permission.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Allen.
Yeah, I just propose we go with the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr, Alan. Have I got a seconder for that? Councillor Wood, diolch yn fawr. Councillor Nigel, you got your hand up.
I was going to second that, Chair.
Lovely, diolch yn fawr. I can't see anybody's hand up, so I've got a proposer by Councillor Allen to go with the recommendation and seconded by Councillor Wood. Show your hands, please. Just gwelwch ar that. Lovely. I think that's unanimous and that's it. Therefore is carried. Da iawn. Right. Yr un nesa.
The
Zero.
next one.
Oh, can we get Councillor Joe Nuttall back in? She's on her way. There she is.
Lost sound again, sorry.
Sorry. Okay. Croeso nôl, Joe. Right, there
Welcome
we are.
back, Joe.
Next application, 0/5-6-4 to relocate from the existing Kenrose Police Station, the lantern lights, emergency telephone and signage to Glasstair Station Road, Kenrose. And Paula will take us through this one.
No updates, Chair.
There we are, short and sweet, diolch yn fawr. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, propose we go with the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Okay, Cynghorwraig Gwynel Ellis.
Councillor Gwennell. I like to second Councillor Allen. So can I ask you please to vote in the usual way?
I think that's it. Yeah, mae hwnna'n unfrydol, so mae hwnna wedi
That's
basio.
unanimous. That has been passed. Right, the next application, and last one, I think. Yes, here we are.
ENQ/33042. Sorry, 32042. Thank you, Councillor Wood. Proposed offshore wind farm and associated offshore and onshore infrastructure to connect the wind turbine generators to each other and the national grid. Mona Offshore Wind Farm, East Irish Sea. Who's taking this one? Kerry? Kerry.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to clarify, this is a little bit different from most of the applications that are before you. You're not being asked to make a decision on this application. You're being asked to effectively make comments on the proposal. So it's the developer's responsibility to carry out the formal statutory consultation that they are carrying out on the application before they submit the application to the planning inspectorate. And because this wind farm is of a capacity greater than 350 megawatts, the application will ultimately be determined by the Secretary of State in the UK government rather than by Welsh ministers. So effectively, we are being asked at this stage, we're not obliged to make representations, but it's always beneficial to do so. If we feel that further information is required, we can make that as part of our response, because what will follow this is that there will be a formal application submitted to the planning inspectorate, and that will contain an environmental statement, which effectively is a further redraft of the preliminary environmental information report. So it's perfectly in order to request further information, but we do have to meet this deadline, because we've effectively the consultation period, the formal consultation period has closed. We have been allowed a limited additional period in which to make representations if we wish to do so. The consultation responses we've carried out internally are summarised in the report and in the addendum. I'm not really going to read them out, really. The only thing we're saying is that we're minded to express no objection in principle to the proposal, subject to further refinement of the working corridor and assessment of the effects. We're also asking for delegated authority to make further representations following the submission of the application to the planning inspectorate. And the reason for that is that once the application is formally submitted, there's only a very, very tight timetable for submitting further representations and also for responding to the inspector's questions. They always come up with a long list of questions which they expect us to turn around in a tight timescale. So we are requesting delegated authority for us to deal with those matters. We do have visualizations on the PowerPoint if members wish to see them. I will leave it in your hands as to whether you wish to see them. Okay, in that case, I'll just get the list out so I can advise Julia which slide to turn to. Slide 12, please, Julia. So I'm afraid these slides don't come out very clearly on PowerPoint, but I will try and talk them through with you. So this is effectively a slide looking north from the Great Orme. Effectively, the Mona wind farm wind turbines are shaded, are coloured blue. There are also wind turbines which are coloured red, which relate to other wind farms. So these are the wind farms. They're not the Gwyntermore wind farms and the adjoining wind farms that are most dominates our seascape from the North Wales coast, but they're effectively other wind farms in the North Sea. If you can go to the next slide, please, Julia. Now this shows the same viewpoint. Again, it's the visualizations aren't very easy to read, I appreciate. But this one shows the Awilmore wind farm. So the Awilmore wind farm is the proposal that's currently before the Secretary of State. And that one will come much closer to the North Wales shore than the Mona proposal. The Mona wind turbines are shown in orange on this slide. And again, I apologize, the quality of the visualization isn't very easy to read on PowerPoint, but it does show that the Awilmore wind turbines would be conspicuously more prominent than from other locations than the other wind turbines. There's also a slide 14, which shows the same view, but slightly further. That's looking northeast from the Great Orme. I do have other visualizations which I can show you, but I'm not sure whether the image quality is clear enough. So I'll leave it down to you to decide whether you want to see those visualizations. Okay, in that case, I have nothing further to add.
Diolch yn fawr, Kerry.
Thanks, Kerry. Councillor Ifor Lloyd.
Just for clarity now, this is just for the Morgan field. This isn't Morgan, Awilmore and Mona. Sorry, it's just for Mona, this, yeah? It's not for the three cumulatively.
Yeah, there are effectively, well, there've been a number of proposals. So you've got the Awilmore proposal, which is the one that's just been through examination. There's a report, the planning inspectors are compiling the report to the Secretary of State, and that's due to be determined sometime in September. Members who were on the committee at the time will know that the council did object to that application because it came much further to the Great Orme and would affect the setting of the Great Orme to a far greater extent than other offshore wind turbines. The current application is the Mona, and that involves basically a landfall site somewhere between Llandillas and Abergele. And then I mean, I've got plans we can show you if you wish to see them, but effectively the cable corridor would go south of Llandillas and then cross the Llanfair Road in the vicinity of Penrhyfel Crossroads, and then would run roughly parallel to Glasgow Road. There's also a consultation which is ongoing over the Morgan wind farm, but that's much further. That's further afield again, and we don't really intend to comment on that one because it's much further away, and the landfall site will be in England, so it's not really going to affect us as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just on
Can
Can I just ask?
And this is underground cabling. Looking at the infrastructure now, it's underground cabling, landing in Llandillas, running through Mwylfre to Glasgow or Vynol Bropor. Because
There are two substation sites. They're both in Denbighshire.
yeah,
One of them south, just south of the business park in East St Asaph. The other one is southwest of St Asaph.
yeah,
So they are well outside the county boundary, but effectively the proposal would involve a landfill site. I can show plans if you wish to see them. But
please.
Yes, so what I'll do is if I'll just get the PowerPoint on my screen so I can let Julia know which slide to bring up on the PowerPoint. So if you'll just bear with me, I'll just see if I can find the PowerPoint presentation. So slide number 1. This is basically a plan showing the area of the offshore array and the offshore cable corridor. And as you can see, it would be due north of the Craven Peninsula, but much further north than Awilmore. Slide number 2, please, Julia. This again is another plan with slightly more detail on it. Slide number 3. So this basically shows the landfall site. So the landfall site, you would basically between the caravan site at Llandillas Beach on the west, and it would extend east to along Pensarn Beach, just north of the North Wales Business Park. Now, the plan you can see before you does show a large area shaded blue, which extends east along Pensarn Beach, and that area will be used for access. So they're not proposing any actual construction works in that area. They are proposing horizontal direct drilling under the more sensitive parts of the route. So where it goes beneath roads, railways, triple SIs and so on, and the listed wall of Gwrych Castle, they would be using horizontal direct drilling to minimize impacts on those assets. And that would include ancient woodland as well. Slide number 4, please. So this again shows the same area used for access. Slide number 5, please, Julia. So this shows the area between Gwrych Castle and Llandillas, and it is quite an extensive area. It's those of you who know the area will know it's quite visually both on account of its ecological habitats. Some of the land is triple SI, some of the land is ancient woodland. You've also got, obviously, Gwrych Castle is listed and the boundary wall is listed. They are proposing horizontal direct drilling in the more sensitive areas. One thing which we propose to ask them to do is to refine the working corridor further, because it is shown as being quite extensive in that plan. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Julia. Again, this is further south of Gwrych Castle. And next slide again. So this is effectively where it goes south towards Penrhyfel Crossroads through Betws and Rose Ward. And the next slide again after that. So effectively, it will cross over Penrhyfel Crossroads. So you can see Betws and Rose and Llanfairpwll here, and they're the ward boundaries, not the settlements. It will come out, it will cross Llanfair Road in the general area of Penrhyfel Crossroads, and then there are 2 alternative routes which split off. So if you can then go to slide number 9, please, Julia. So what you have here is you've got the northern route, which extends to the north of the Tana Mynydd fisheries, and that's the area shaded grey. And you've got the green route, which is the area that's effectively south of Tana Mynydd fisheries, and it's basically along Moel Vreisaf. Next slide, please, Julia. So the 2 alternative routes then merge further east. And then if you go to the last one, number 11, this is in the area of Talgrwn. So there are 2 alternative routes, the red to the north and the yellow or orange to the south. We don't have any slides. We haven't put any slides of the route in Denbighshire. As you can see, the cable route is very extensive. And it's something which it's a concern which we have asked them to, or we propose to ask them to refine the working corridor further so that the impacts, the specific impacts, can be assessed in greater detail. Thank you.
Iawn i fawr.
Diolch. Yeah, just
Okay, Bob, yeah, thank you.
it's the Abigail hinterland there. So there's a lots of specific restrictions in certain areas. I was just wondering if work had been done on heat radiation, because these cables give off heat. Yeah, if that kind of work had been done, that's all. I just would like to, if we could note that, please.
I've got no problem at all in including that in a representation, but I would just like to clarification as to what we're asking them to provide. Are we asking them to include in the environmental assessment?
Please, yes.
An indication of whether the cables. And
it has been a point of concern with some residents that the cables do kick off a lot of heat.
Is the concern that the heat is it an effect on human health or comfort, or
human health and animal health, basically, yeah. Especially in the areas where it goes to the SSI.
Okay. We can. I've got no problems with including that in our representation. If you're formally moving that as a proposal.
Wyt ti'n gwneud cynnig?
Yndw, dwi'n cynnig.
Are you proposing then? Yes, I do. Propose that we go with the recommendation to support this, to go through to the next stage, but with those conditions, please. And you're happy to include that? Yes.
It will essentially be up to the planning inspectorate to decide whether they have enough information to make a decision, but all we can do is make the point.
Yeah, but you're happy to include Councillor Lever's concerns?
Yes.
Yeah. Iawn. Councillor Nigel, sorry for waiting so long.
It's okay, thank you, Chair. Got a question really for Kerry. Obviously, the landing site is at T Crun, and Councillor Andrew Wood has done a lot of work over the years with his concern about the degraded T Crun, the way it's being eroded by the longshore drift. And I just wonder whether there's any possibility we could get something in place there to preserve or to stop any further degrading of that T Crun coastal area. It would help protect the infrastructure underneath and also maintain the sea defence that it is.
Essentially, it would be up to the plan or the Secretary of State advised by the Planning Inspectorate to decide the form of the development consent order. I don't recall seeing any proposals for coastal infrastructure as part of the planning, coastal defence infrastructure as part of the DCO proposals.
I was thinking more of groins, either rock or wood, to stop the sediments travelling eastwards, because that's what's happening. They're being eroded by the longshore drift. It would protect the infrastructure that they're putting in. The turbine companies, the wind turbine companies, would protect their infrastructure, build up the shoreline, and protect that SSI area of T Crun.
I understand the point that the member's making, but I can't. The applicants would not be proposing a landfall site if they felt that the existing coastal protection works were inadequate to meet their own requirements. So I think there would be. I think that would be seen as being an excessive requirement. I'm only speculating because I haven't discussed the matter with them, but I'm surmising that will be the case.
Okay, Nigel.
Well, I think we should ask the question. If you don't ask, you never get.
Can we do that, Kerry? Yeah. Okay then, Nigel. Are you willing therefore to second Ivor's proposal?
If I can, yes.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Joe Nuttall.
Diolch, Chair. The car park at Pensarn is particularly awful. If that's going to be used with lots of wagons and things and vehicles, can they resurface it afterwards, please, as part of the plans? Because I'm sure the locals would really benefit from that.
Again, it's a matter which we can ask them to consider.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
But it would ultimately be up to the Secretary of State to decide.
Diolch.
Okay. Councillor Allen. Oh, Councillor Andrew Wood first.
Well, I'll go first and I think Alan can fill in and then I'll come to the end. But anyway, we go back to a little bit of a history lesson in 2016 for those that live in that area. The tip, the continual coastal erosion, the tip was exposed, the Llandrillo's tip. And that needed a very, very quick remedy, which is rock armor. So the rock armor was actually put along the Llandrillo's to protect the tip from disappearing into the sea and all the environmental impact that that's going to have. Now, this proposal is to bring it in under the tip. Now, the tip, it says in the report, will leachate out years and years of dangerous stuff. Obviously, I do support this as as an ongoing power needs and so on and so forth, and the area itself is not a bad area to bring the cable apart. But the problem is just like Nigel said, there is a big erosion problem there, and it needs a proper fix. The tip, to take the cables through and release the tip, is going to be a real big problem. I cannot understand why they can't bring them further along. The other thing is, there is a triple SI beach. Now, we talk about triple SI, and when I was doing my fireworks, you couldn't even take a transit van onto the triple SI beach without NRW having a baby, basically. And so I'm a little bit perplexed that it's going to trundle up and down there, maybe on the other side, but they're going to be using earth-moving stuff and so on and so forth up and down the triple SI beach. We've lost over 2 hectares of the 51.7 hectares of beach. Owen's aware of it. A few of you may be aware of it. But we've got this dangerous thing where we haven't got the protection for this tip that's been there 100 odd years. And we need to look at that. And this is a primary environmental impact question we should be asking if that is where the proposal is going to go. And from what you've shown me, that's exactly where it's going to go. Let me go back to what Kerry just said about coastal plans for for strengthening our coast, and rightfully so. Kimmel Bay and Towin were apportioned. Abergele's sort of plans for Abergele to strengthen it has been awarded. Basically, the money has gone to Towin and Kimmel Bay because the population's there. It's there to protect the population, so they're getting higher walls and so on and so forth. We've got no coastal protection at all in that area. And of course, as most of you may know or not know, is the sea has eroded the whole of the beach away from the sea defence now. So we're getting to a stage where you're bringing something in. We can actually use this to our advantage. This is where Nigel came from, that we need to stop the longshore erosion. We need to make sure that tip is protected, and we need to make sure that the beach is protected. It's a triple SI. I'll stop there. I may come back in a minute, but I think we can. I don't know how to spell it out in a planning inspector's questionnaire, but I think you can see what I'm getting at. We have a problem. They want to bring the cables in where that problem is, and hopefully we can work with them to stop any further loss. I can't. By the way, it says 10% of it's one of the. Pensarn Beach is one of 10% of the natural vegetation. No, that beach is one of the longest beaches in Europe. It's actually one of probably 5 or 6 beaches. It's 1.7 kilometers long, and it is full of very endangered plants, which are very special. So this is why I feel very keen about it, very, very passionate about it. But can we actually look at, you know, using this new scheme to protect the SSI?
Yeah, and Alan.
Yeah, obviously I'm fully aware of the issues that Andrew's just raised, so I'd be fully supportive of what he's asking. My concern is on the ERF section of the application 3, which is works area 4. The red line area reaches inland and accommodates 2 bridges at Sea Road and adjacent to Pensarn train station. These bridges are not in a good condition, so I'd like it to be noted that there are concerns over the weight of the vehicles that might be going over those bridges. The Sea Road Bridge was actually closed back in 2009 because of concerns with the state of the bridge. I think it was about a year or 2 later, it was reopened with what they call back then temporary traffic lights. So it's restricted to one-way traffic coming over. Now, one-way traffic for cars and light vans is fine, but I'd like to know what size vehicles are going to be using these bridges. The bridge on the other side of Pensarn Station is not they're very, very old bridges. So my concerns of any laden vehicles going over there. So I'd like those questions raised as well.
We've had, in response to the last matter, we've had a response saying the Sea Road Bridge is a NWMW, the Trunk Road Agency asset, and falls under the responsibility, not Conway Council. There are traffic lights in place to prevent two-way traffic over the bridge at any one time, supposedly for safety reasons. I would expect the Welsh Government will be a consultee on the application and will be raising this matter. There's no reason why we can't include it as a concern.
So yeah, I'll just
and make sure that consult.
I think that's what Councillor Allen is asking for, isn't it?
So yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can formally request they consult and Welsh Government if they haven't already done so on the capacity of the bridge. In terms of the matters raised, refer to paragraph 72 and 76 of the committee reports. And what it says in relation to Llandrillo's Beach landfill sites, the construction of the cable corridor could result in disturbance of the integrity of the basal line being compromised by careful design and drilling beneath the site. The mobilization of contamination, and then in brackets, i.e. leachate, within the landfill site can be avoided. The effect will therefore be of minor adverse significance. In relation to damage to existing flood defences, it says, while a coastal flood defence wall is present within the east extent of the landfall, no additional flood defences structures are shown to be present on NRW mapping in the western extent. However, the elevation of the beach above the shoreline acts as an informal defence. The effect will be of minor significance. So I just want to be clear, if we're asking them to provide further information, we're not just asking them to repeat things that have already been.
But I don't think it's true, because the tip is actually, it's sunk down. I'm not an expert on the tip. I don't know where the membranes are. I don't know where the leachate's coming out, but there is concerns about it. And it was a bit of a patch and repair job in 2016. So much so, the way they repaired it with the rock armour has caused the erosion problem from the sea, from the northwest tides that come into the beach there and scour the system there. So that's one thing that is not within this, but needs to be taken account of. And this is a SSI site. I know there is very little housing there. There's caravans there, so on and so forth. But I feel passionately we've got something there which is disappearing quickly, and we need to look at it in conjunction with being very careful with this tip. Okay, it caused a big problem. I don't know if you're about Kerry in 2016. You remember the problem? There was a lot of people worried about this. There's a little bit of an environmental disaster. So we need to be very, very careful of that and with that. But as long as they know about it, I've read the paragraphs, and it seems to sort of it glosses over. This is we'll drill underneath, no problem. We'll do this, we'll do that. And like Alan says, the bridges. I know Bridges are bridges, but that bridge has been closed for 13 years now. And the reason why it was done, because there was a problem with the abutments between the bridge, the rail bridge and the North Wales Trunk Railway, Trunk Roads Bridge, which needed repairing. And I know this, and I've seen the report between junction 23 and 24, but it's not been done this, it's not been scheduled. And the other bridge is not really capable of taking heavy traffic. The other thing I would like to ask Kate, and it's not clear, but maybe I've not read it properly, is that they're going to use access onto the Triple SI. They're going to use vehicles, because I can't see how they can get on. Well, they could do with machines onto the rock arm on the other side, but it's not clear, and maybe because the plans are not defined or they're not sort of set in stone, that maybe it would be, but that would be horrendous.
Yeah, I do share the concerns about the lack of clarity in the plans and the very broad extent that the blue area that does include a very extensive area, and we have asked for them to refine that. Well, we will be in our representations. We're proposing to ask them to refine that further when it comes to, so that when it comes to formal submission and the preparation of the environmental statement, there is going to be a much narrower working corridor identified. In relation to the issue, in relation to the tip, I just want to be absolutely clear, I've got the wording right, because it's something that I don't want them to miss simply because they feel it's already been addressed. But is your concern that the environmental report doesn't address the impacts of scouring as a result of the landfall? Yeah.
Well, it moves like any rock armor. Anybody who's and deals with coastal defence knows that rock armor moves. It was done in an emergency 2016. It started to move. It's been moving along there now. It's going to need redoing again. But the problem is that the tip is getting exposed again. It will get exposed. You basically got a coastal path of a couple of meters wide, and then the tip is right behind it. And that tip is, well, it used to be the whole, it was landfill tip for all our area, for all Conway at one point, and was used up until around about the 2010, something like that, and then capped off. It has got methane gas meters on the top and so on and so forth. It is a tip that is dissolving slowly, but it's next to the sea, and that's it. And I'm not sure, and I cannot comment on what type of membrane is there, what type of protection is there. Well, I think that the panic that was there in 2016 means that we need to not be seen as we need to be seen as really being environmentally responsible on this one. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Can we, I take it we have to put in a response.
Yes.
And I take it you will note everything that's been
Yes.
said. Would it be helpful if Councillor Andrew Wood would send you an email stating what his exact concerns are,
Yes.
so that could be put into the report?
Yes, we've only got that. That would be very helpful. I think if we've only got a limited period to respond to this, so if it could be done by the end of this week, that would be.
Is that doable?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You can send those slides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure whether the PowerPoint presentation may be too large to send by email, but they are actually on the applicant's website. If you seek for Mona Wind Farm and look for the seascape and landscape impact assessment, they are more visible when you look at them online.
Matt.
It's just to say as well, just in the unlikely event that the email doesn't come through, that the officers have noted the concerns and the comments. So in the absence of having that on time, and to ensure that we're in time to make the response to the consultation, that the officers will word that concern to the best of their abilities in the absence of that email you consent with.
Well, it's my duty as local member to bring it up, so I will do that tonight, and you'll have it tomorrow. Thank you. Who's it going to, Kerry? To you?
Thank you, Andrew. Right, I've got two more speakers. I've already got a proposal and a seconder, so these two speakers will be the last ones. Councillor Nigel first, and then Councillor Ivor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we need to get these points across in the strongest possible terms. Andrew will do an admirable job, as he has done about T-Crun. Alan has quite rightly pointed out, the failings of the trunk agency with the Sealand Road Bridge, which is diabolical, and the fact that county here, we have allowed that to be in that condition for, I think, over 10 years now, is unbelievable. The Pentarn Railway Bridge, Kerry, that was built in 1848 for horses and carts, not for articulated or heavy goods vehicles, which will be carrying probably, no doubt, a lot of weight. So we need to press those points firmly so that any works are done safely and not to the detriment of our residents any further, should I say. Thank you.
Ivor. Yeah, just a point of clarification. So when does this consultation come to an end, and when do they definitively pick a route? Please, Kerry, that's my first question.
The consultation period has actually formally ended, but Paula did ask for an extension of time so that they could be reported to this committee, but we don't have much time left to respond.
Yeah, okay. And when will they actually select a route, so we've got something firm to work on? Because at the moment this is very indicative.
At the moment, it is very indicative. They will be submitting. I don't have the time scale in front of me, but once they've worked out refined the scheme, and it will then be subject to a formal submission to the planning inspectorate, and then we will then just have 4 weeks to make further representations, which means that we may not be in a position to take it back to planning committee, and that's why we're asking for delegated authority.
Yeah, the second question was on the bridge front, just for clarity, they are both Conway assets, are they? No, they're not. They're highway, they're, sorry,
They're 55.
Welsh Government.
Yeah.
The Sea Road, my understanding is that the Sea Road Bridge is a Welsh Government structure.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about the old bridge in Pensan. I imagine that would be a county structure.
I thought it was an odd, sorry, the railways, I thought it belonged to them.
It may be.
Yeah, okay. All right, they're the points of concern, really, with weight limits. Yeah. Okay,
okay.
Don't want to go too much, but
yeah,
just
quickly.
Yeah, quickly, definitely. Have they actually applied to do any work and exploration work already? Because they seem to be working a lot around there. Okay, you know, at the back of Middle Gates, past Leader Charlie's house and down there. So have they actually done an exploration? I don't know how it works in planning.
I'm not sure of the details, but I understand that ground exploration works are ongoing.
Okay, and it's been granted. Obviously, it's granted, but we never saw anything about that. No, so I didn't know anything about it.
Because it's exploratory work, it doesn't need planning permission, but they have notified us of the ongoing works that are taking place.
Yeah, it's just as a ward member, it would have been nice to know about that.
Okay.
Last time I did, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, I've got no further hands up, or new hands up. So we've got a proposal, we've got a seconder. Can you show hands in the usual way, please? Yeah, okay, wel dyna fo felly. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi gyd.
Okay, thank you very much to you all.
All for your diligent work. Can I especially thank Matt for keeping me on the straight and narrow, and can I thank Jane for telling me off for pressing the wrong button, and thank you all for your participation and your contribution today. Diolch yn fawr iawn chi.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, members.